Hey guys, this is Rainwolf from Convention Video.
Hey guys, Kirito Silverheart here.
And this is
So we are kind of off one person today. Asuna was not feeling well, so it'll just be the three of us today. Hopefully this becomes a pretty good show, and I hope everybody that is here and then that does pop in enjoys the show. This is the post show for SAO, War of the Underworld.
So guys, this has been a hell of a season.
So we're going to start off with some theories that I had, and I think some of us also had when we first started all this. Alice going to save the gang instead of going through the door. That would have been I'm not sure how that would have gone if she actually did do that.
Well, it's going to be one of those things, I think, that I think the timetable would have felt different.
Yes.
We discussed in that particular episode that we didn't really have a sense of how much time was left. We were told before Kirito and Asuna showed up to save Alice and fight Gabriel that they had like 10 minutes before max acceleration kicked in. After that, we lost all sense of time between that moment and when the accelerator kicked in, because it was literally non-stop fight.
Okay, here's one that I really had on my mind for a while, and it was, I don't know how many of either of you watched Doctor Who. I know Kirito made a comment on it in one episode.
Love Doctor Who.
Who thinks we're going to have a 10th Doctor situation like we had the 10th Doctor in Rose, where we had a second 10th Doctor in the other world, but we're going to have the situation where we have the real life Kirito with Asuna, obviously, and then we have the cloned Kirito with Alice.
I never thought about that, but
I hadn't either, really. That would be that's going to be a tricky one, because if you stop to think about what we've seen out of Kirito, and let's just call him Fluctlight Kirito for right now, they're almost two different people, just from the little bit of interaction that we've seen with Fluctlight Kirito. He seems very one-track minded. He seems it almost seems like he's going to go to whatever length is necessary to achieve his goal, much like we've seen from villains and anti-heroes in the past. Let's take Akahiko Kayaba for a minute. He did whatever he felt was necessary to get his point and his feelings about Aincrad and SAO and VR MMO and the furthering of technology and everything. He created a death game. He pulled out all the stops. I don't know, Leary, do you have any additional thoughts on that?
I agree with the fact that he was very different from like the real Kirito. So I don't know how a relationship would happen, because I don't think he would focus on that. Because like you said, he was very one track, focused on the one goal.
Yeah,
he made it pretty well known to Hyga in that conversation that his only concern is the underworld and protecting it. And as we discussed in that episode,
for Alice, protecting it is her number one goal as well.
Yeah, but I don't think Alice is the type of character that would push to the same extremes that Kirito would. Fluctlight Kirito.
Alice ended up getting a lot of humanity, like, I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Like between the time in the real world and the time she spent with Kirito.
Yeah, exactly.
And okay. So since we've covered that to the point where we can't really go any further without any other inputs from anybody else, the merging of Underworld super accounts and personal accounts, that's became more of a kind of a truth in this case because of what happened with Gabriel's avatar.
Yeah, and Visago as well.
Yeah, because at first it's like with him transferring over his account, obviously, he's just going to put one of the headpieces on and Link start in. No, he actually went in through the flux light with his character through the system.
Which, again, I think that the first part of Alicization kind of laid the groundwork for that. If you think back to the fight with the administrator, Kirito changed his outfit right then and there. And she was like, oh, you prefer black, like the swordsman of the Dark Realm or whatnot. But he put on his SAO appearance. And I think that is what opened the door for them to say, okay, well, if Kirito can change his outfit at will, then why can't we have other players come in and either use their outside gear or change mid-fight? We saw it with Poe, Visago. We saw it with Gabriel. We saw all the ALO players port over their avatars. We even saw when Yuna showed up, and Nautilus. He was wearing one particular outfit, and then all of a sudden, poof, he changed into the red and white Blood Knights armor.
Yeah.
Or Knights of the Blood Oath armor. And same thing with Yuna. She had her fairy design, she had her performance design, and she had her bard design.
Well, the thing is with Yuna, she was an AI, kind of similar to Yui.
Right.
And with having her at his side, probably for a normal person like him that did come through his headset and not through a Floodlight system, her assistance probably came into play there.
True. But again, I think it's more or less they laid the groundwork for it of showing that alterations could be made. Because as we discussed before, as we were reviewing the series and stuff, the Underworld's prime base coding was based on that of the Seed.
Yes.
The Seed has laid the groundwork for everything since SAO. So there really should be no surprise that avatars could port over or that things could be changed, in Underworld to resemble things outside Underworld. I really don't think there should be any surprise there. Now, as far as if you want to talk about merging the Underworld super accounts and the personal accounts, like we saw with Gabriel and Visago, that gets a little trickier.
I agree, because there was a lot more involved. Then, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, the only real understanding that we have of why Poe and Gabriel could tap into the powers of the Underworld is because they said we came to understand how the Underworld works when we were logged in with the other accounts. Poe calls it out right in the middle of the battle with Kirito. He was like, I know how this world works, and that's how I know I'm going to win.
You're right, because with them having those avatars, having their knowledge of those characters would develop the knowledge for their own personal use.
Mm-hmm. So I don't think it was so much as the accounts were hacked or manipulated to fit into the Underworld. I think it was literally they brought the character over into the Underworld, but because they already had a knowledge of how the Underworld mechanics worked and how the system worked, they could manipulate the system to augment themselves.
Yeah.
We see a great example of that with Poe and his weapon.
And bringing up that weapon, I was going to probably ask this later, but what was Akihiko's thought in creating that weapon in Alcrad? It really boggles my mind that he would place a weapon like that in Alcrad for the game that he created, even though it pretty much was a death game. But he really didn't. Obviously, people were going to die because of the way he did things. But I think in a deep down, he really didn't want the death for people to die in such a manner that they did. It's like if they were to die trying to complete the game, yes. But if by other means, no.
Okay, well, here's something to consider. I bring up two key facts to consider. Number one, Kayaba knew that if anybody reached floor 100, he was going to be the one that they had to fight. So was his mentality of it, by the time they even get here, the weapon would finally be strong enough to break through my defenses?
Well, no, technically.
If they were using that weapon?
If they were using it in the way Poe was using it, possibly. But if any generic normal person came across it,
right, that's what I'm saying.
That weapon would be useless against it.
Okay, but here's the other thought. How do we know that Kayaba implemented that weapon into the system? Because that weapon could have been custom crafted. And I bring up the argument case of the episode with the murder mystery, where you had the players who were supposedly being PK'd in safe zones in town.
Yeah, they were forcing them to engage into PvP even though they were sleeping.
Right, but what we were seeing was literally the supposed ghost of somebody going around and murdering former guildmates. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So when they took the weapon that had murdered the first person and had it appraised and evaluated by Agil, he said this was a custom crafted weapon. This was made in-game by a player. So how do we know that Visago, Poe, or somebody else didn't craft that weapon for Poe?
That had to be able to have that to craft it, but also have to be able to have the ability to put that type of enhancement on it.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody can make a weapon that helps falsify to make it look like something had degraded and destroyed, why couldn't they put some kind of enchantment or enhancement on there to make it absorb or weaken? I mean, we can point to almost any generic MMO out there and say that there's some kind of mechanic like that in at least a quarter of them, I would say.
Yeah.
Where if you do X, you get Y, but if you do A, you get B. I don't think it's so far-fetched to say that weapon was custom crafted for Poe, if not by Poe.
I don't see Poe having the crafter skill. If he does, it's probably on a low level. He would definitely have had to, as he corrupted pretty much Laughing Coffin itself, there probably was somebody in Laughing Coffin, or he found out about somebody's ability that that person didn't really want anyone to know about, and then abuse that person and their ability.
True.
Oh,
I mean,
definitely.
we see in MMOs and stuff all the time, crafting, crafters inside their own specialized guilds who make weapons, armors, items, and whatnot for the rest of their crew.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, you, Rain Wolf, are one of our top crafters in our Final Fantasy guild.
Yep.
So, you're helping us make stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But who's to say that they didn't have somebody in Laughing Coffin who was just like, hey, dude, check this out. Figured out that there's this whole special mechanic that we can put into this weapon. You interested in? Here, cool, here it is. But I definitely push the argument that was a custom crafted weapon in SAO. And then the fact that those stats port over into the Underworld, where it is so easy to manipulate.
It is.
It is so easy to manipulate, as we saw Poe do. He basically took the basic mechanics of that weapon and combined it with what the Mages Guild was doing, using up the resources of the region to channel it into a super strong burst attack.
Yeah.
We even saw Alice do it. And Alice was an Integrity Knight.
Very much so. So since we're still talking about Poe, I know we've had some thoughts already as it is about Poe being turned into a tree.
One of the most fitting deaths in the series. I'm sorry. I still love the smirk.
The expressions, the motion, like the movements that Kirito made in the process of doing that. There was 0 Fs.
Yeah,
there was
none. No Fs given at all. None. Zip, zilch, nada.
His fields were
Lay
bare.
thine eyes upon my field and find it barren. Exactly.
It's like, I really, really want to know what's happened to him in the 200 years. More than likely, obviously, no one's freedom, because I think that would have been when Kirito and Asuna came out from the Underworld from the accelerated rate.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been one of the things they probably would have brought up, like in their case where they actually survived. But then again, after they gained control, if his body was in the state that like Kirito's and Asuna's was, I think Kiko would have probably just pulled the plug on him.
It honestly wouldn't surprise me if Kikwa had just walked into that other Fluctlight room and said, dude's dead, and shut down that bay. I mean, I have almost
no
quarrel whatsoever that he is dead and gone, and we are never going to have to deal with Poe again.
Oh, very much so.
I mean, Kirito and Asuna and Alice could literally walk up to that tree, slice it down, and try to free him in the next whatever comes up. The
thing is, he has no body to go back to. So
exactly.
He's pretty much stuck in the Underworld unless he somehow was able to get into his Fluctlight cube and put into a body similar to Alice's or Alice's itself. But it's interesting. That's one thing I really want to see come what would happen with in the next arc. I know, as far as we know, they're not animating it, but that's something I would love for them to go back on. The SAO server lighting up. The thing is with that, who thinks that actually had some involvement with bringing Akihiko alive?
Oh. Okay, you know what? This is actually an interesting question because I had not considered that possibility. Because with the development that we found out of Kayaba later in the series, of him hiding in that prototype robot, I just kind of had this weird assumption that once everything started being developed over at the Turtle with Wrath and everything, that he was just kind of there. His code or his Fluctlight, whatever you want to say at this point, was floating about inside the seed.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as he was installed into a system that would give him an escape route like that to mainframe himself, I guess, or store himself in something, I think he just kind of went with it. But that's an interesting thought. I'll let Lyria throw in some opinion here because I'm still kind of formulating my argument for this.
I don't.
I just threw you on the spot there, hun.
You did.
Just go with it. Just flow. Just roll.
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't really know. It's hard.
To really put you on this, like for that one, it's kind of really a tough question without really thinking on it beforehand.
Think of that. I didn't really think on that one.
But the thing is, the only with ALO, I think originally he formed there because of his pretty much the SAO server was right there merged with ALO, and that's how he came about. And then that's where the seed came from. So who doesn't bring it that once the connection with the old SAO server to the Underworld happened, that whatever piece of him was still there was floating around and is like, oh, now I have an escape route.
Okay,
that's literally what I just. He's just floating around. That's all I get from this. He's just there.
See, when this originally came up in the show, when we found out that Kayaba was inside and controlling the robot, I made a comment. I was just like, this dude is now freaking Voldemort. How many freaking Horcruxes does he have? You know, but now that I think back on it a little bit more, yes, my thought was going to his appearance in ALO. And I was like, well, okay, ALO was part of, you know, the seed and blah, 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 blah. But
the seed wasn't really in play at the time in ALO.
Right. That's where my brain kept flickering back and forth. It was like, no, the seed was the thing that came up at the end of the ALO arc.
Yeah, because what Kirito did and the emotions and things that he was, and then also with Douche McGee caused pretty much Kaiba to appear. There's really no
It was another one of those miracle save moments. Let's encourage our God here.
So what doesn't say that that spark or whatever that was left of him was actually just sitting in that old server floating around waiting for it to be reactivated?
Well, part of my brain kind of wants to go somewhere else with it.
What's
yes,
that?
ALO had a direct line connection to the old SAO servers. They had to.
Well, it pretty much was. It was just the game. It was just another game reworked over their original coding.
Right. Hence why all of Kirito's stats and everything ported over when he logged in and all of that jazz. But because we have seen this later in the series, particularly with Alicization and War of Underworld, who's to say that they are not going to try to retcon or BS the reason that why Kayaba keeps showing up is because of Kirito?
Totally see them doing that.
How do
they tied him?
Right. We've seen that, data clusters can be linked together. That's why, Kirito was able to put Yui's data into an item and then carry that from area to area and then bring her back.
That really gives a good option because if you think about it, between Kirito and Kaiba, they are very similar to pretty much almost to par as people. Kirito has pretty much been working towards doing the same thing he does, but Kaiba took a step in a wrong direction pretty much.
Right.
Because he didn't really there was not many people that supported him. He had only Rinko. The science community wasn't really there for him.
Mm-hmm.
But with Kirito, he has all these other people to help him prevent stepping in that wrong direction.
Yeah, I mean, for lack of a better term, Kayaba was the trendsetter. He was the first one to go out there and say, this is the technology that we have. This is what we can do with it. And everybody scoffed over it. Mm-hmm. But then when he actually put it into development and showed what it could do, and then that branched off through Miss Rinko and created the Medicuboid, the deep dive bed that they could use for medical purposes. And then that broke off, the Amusphere broke off. The deep dive, the original deep dive technology that trapped everybody in SAO got a non-lethal upgrade, the Amusphere, down the road for when ALO and all that stuff came out through the new production company owned by Asuna's father.
And then they took that step forward again, creating, I forgot what it was called, where it pretty much made AR reality.
Yeah, the ordinal scale head.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. And then since with bringing in that AR reality thing, I don't remember, did I to bring up about the daughter thought in the last episode?
No.
On Kirito's and Asuna's daughter?
No, I think that was something that we had started talking off mic.
An interesting thought is with that, if anyone has seen World, with that, the pro tag in that character, well, the female pro tag, there's been a lot of rumors and stuff like that. She is actually Kirito and Asuna's daughter in the future. And it kind of makes sense because now with the way the development of technology has gone in these past 2 to 3 years, why can't we have any jumps like this in real life? But it's an interesting.
And actually, wouldn't it actually be 4 years? Because at the end of the Aincrad story, when Asuna and Kirito basically defeat Kayaba, he looks at Asuna and says, "I am this old," and that was after they had been in there for 2 years.
Oh yeah, so 4 years, yeah, because the beginning of the Aincrad arc started at 14.
Yeah, so yeah, it's almost been 4 years.
Yep. So within 4 years, there's been all these developments and changes from deep diving to real life, and it's just who doesn't say that they have enough developments to get to the point where the technology that is brought up in World has come, and who knows, it could have been developed by Kirito himself.
That's
Sure.
there's a headcanon I'm almost willing to accept.
If the worlds are fully leaked in that way, just a future time frame, who says he did it? Because with all this, that he's going to school to work on the turtle, to develop AIs, the flux light, everything.
That would be an interesting headcanon. I might have to dig a little bit more into that. I know one of the games I've been always wanting to play is SAO versus Excel World. And basically from what I've come to understand just from reading the base description of it, it's basically some type of rift in the virtual world opens and the Excel world starts merging into ALO.
Huh.
So I'm really curious to see how that plays out. Because you would think if there was that kind of familiarity or connection, like you're saying that she could supposedly be the daughter, Kirito and Asuna. And I don't know, it would almost seems like there would be some kind of lip service or fan service put into that game for that.
Yeah.
So I would definitely have to do some research on that. But I mean, again, a headcanon, I'm totally for it.
So now to go off the rail a little bit. Okay, so if we have Yui and Yuna as AIs, what was that?
I said now we're going off the rail.
Well, this is only slightly, but I have stuff that's like further. If we have the AIs like Yui and Yuna, what prevents them from having more later down the road?
Nothing.
Yeah.
I'll throw it out there. Not a damn thing.
Who would they be? And who would they be with? Like, which characters would have them?
They're gonna all just adopt the random AIs. They're gonna pass them out.
All the fuck light people will become like Yui avatars for Klein and everybody.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
God.
I honestly don't think that you're going to ever replace Yui.
No.
Yui is her own beautiful, unique little snowflake, and God help you, she's adorable. But at the same time, I could see this being a possibility. And I throw up 2 reference points for this. One being ALO. The reason Yui takes the fairy form that she does, the little pixie form that she does.
So she blends in with the surroundings because there are things called as pets and there are pixies that you can, and they explained it very little, that there are little pixie, or you want to call them pets or minions, or
you basically in ALO, each player basically has a Navi, like Link does in the Zelda series.
Yes.
That is an option that they can have. So she disguised herself as such to keep the system from recognizing, oh, this chick has admin privilege. And she's gonna be getting janky with stuff.
No.
But another thing, and again, I know this is technically not canon, but something I could see playing into this would be the SAO video game that related to GGO. In Fatal Bullet, spoiler alert for anybody who hears this, in Fatal Bullet, there is a new expansion being added to Gungale. And in it, there is this like giant spaceship that has crashed to the planet, to the area where GGO is. And the goal is once this certain event takes place is to get onto the ship. Nobody knows what the hell's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going on. But they found out that when this whole expansion thing started, a super mega rare mystery item was dropped in the game. And you come to find out that it's this thing called an Arphasys, ARFA-SYS. And it's an artificial life form AI assistant buddy. Basically, whoever finds it, it bonds to them. It becomes their partner. It becomes their best friend. It becomes their kid. Whatever. But it is their personal AI assistant, and it can go into combat with them. It can analyze things for them. It can bank and shop for them. It can do all kinds of crazy stuff. But the fact that Fatal Bullet brought that concept in, and we've already seen what Yui can do and how they created Yuna in Ordinal Scale, I don't see why there would be any issue, especially if we look into arcs beyond War of Underworld, why this couldn't be a possibility. I think it would be a little difficult to develop independently. I think it would require somebody along the lines of Kirito or maybe a Kayaba working with a unit like Wrath.
Yeah.
Make it a reality, but I could see it being a reality.
I don't really have much to say on that one besides it would be an interesting concept. And with bringing up Wrath a little bit more on that one, what if they made a cyber unit based off Kirito in the game? Pretty much a police force type manner, cybersecurity. Because if technology keeps going in the way it's going, and for what we've seen currently, and quote unquote not actual part of the series or not a cell world, the way that world functions. And one thought I also had, the way the world could end up going is something similar to a Mega Man scenario, where you're getting cyber attacked, but the only way to prevent those cyber attacks is to dive in.
That's, again, headcanon accepted. I mean...
Exactly.
Because if diving into a game is getting to this realistic stage, why not? Because people are going to now, it's like, oh no, we don't have to go send this virus. Now we just got to go send this OP character or this person that's very skilled in the digital world, in other words, to go attack this person's server, get through the firewall.
That sounds kind of Digimon Cyber Sleuth level for me. But
yeah, that works too.
But no, I think that would be a really interesting concept. I could see it being a fun spin-off series, if they did kind of like a, I don't know, 12-16 arc season or 12-16 episode season of just a little side thing. Like, it's in the future, Kirito's working for Wrath and he's become almost kind of the new Kikuwa, and he recruits people that he trusts and knows in game and stuff.
I could see Kirito taking over his placement. If Kiku is to die, once Kirito technically he is at age now. He's 17, turning 18 within the series in about 2 months, because his birthday in the series is October 7th, and estimated we're somewhere in mid-August 2026. So, and bringing that up, 2026, let 2020 end, this pandemic and all this bullcrappery, and just have a jump in technology.
Right.
Please.
Right.
Please.
This is like the dates that have happened in this series are getting real close to real life dates.
And I think we're all willing to just jump into a game and just live there.
The year that SAO and the series started was 2022.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about how this year is going, like I said, everybody would be willing to jump into a game, even a death game.
It would be the ultimate social distancing.
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly.
And sad to say, whatever the first full dive is, if it's something similar to SEO or something pretty much something to that level where it's full dive that and the functions work that well, I'm going in. I'm sorry. I don't care what happens.
I'm right there with you. I'll pull a Poe and I'll rob a warehouse to get the gear because I'm a broke man. I'm a broke little white boy. But yeah, I'd be right there with you, Rain.
It's because it'd be fun to have, because it would end up becoming more of like a either SAO, Dot Hack, Log Horizon, a number of series.
Yeah, although I've seen you in game, I've seen me in game, and I'm honestly starting to think that I need to change my screen name here to Klein. Because I'm a little bit more on par with him.
I don't think Asuna will let you go away with that. I don't think she was.
Yeah, I know. No, she doesn't.
You all have seen me in game, and I'm just saying that if we ever did full dive or whatever, and it was a death game, I would not be leaving the house. I
am finding a digital form of bubble wrap for you, boo.
Just wrap me up. You can carry me around on your shoulders.
There's a series like an in-dive game. Can't remember the name of it that fits Lyria so well right now.
What?
Just can't. I gotta go find it. It's been a long time, but there was a series I watched a long time ago that was based in a video game and type situation with full diving, and that they just stay in the. Oh no, let's go with this more current. I put all my stats into defense so I wouldn't get hurt.
Yes. Yes.
Anyone has seen that anime
Yeah.
or
Yep.
seen the clips from it?
So yeah, just to let everyone know, I die. I die a lot.
You've been getting a lot better, though. You have.
Right?
You really
I
have.
I really, yeah.
Like, I am throwing this out there for the internet to know. You have been getting better. So just to clarify real quick, Rain, Leary, and I, and Austin the Silverheart, we all play with a bunch of our other friends on Final Fantasy XIV. And there are times when Lyria has kid aggro and this and else going on, and she has a tendency to not see AoE markers. So she'll get hit by them. And the only thing that it makes me think of is that episode of SAO when Kirito meets and teams up with Silica. And they go to that one level looking for the special flower to bring Pina back. And all of a sudden, the giant vine flower monster just grabs her by the leg and lifts her up in the air. And she's like screaming, "Help me, help me, help me." And it's like, dude, you can do it yourself.
That is, yes.
Well, okay, now bringing that up, it's like, I'm sorry, Lyria, but if there was a situation like that for when Kirito takes Silica to go get the flower to revive Pina, I'd make you get yourself down.
Would I already know. You don't even have to apologize because you would. You would.
I'd give you a 15 count and then just lob something.
See,
Well,
he cares.
the thing is, he would lob something that it would be enough that you would actually get yourself down.
Yeah.
So, what's your thought on a godlike Klein? How we have Asuna, the goddess of creation, Silica, Shinon, the goddess of the sun, Solus, and Lifa, the goddess of earth, Tieria. What if we had a godlike Klein?
What would even be the god of?
God of the
Like-
friend zone, as we've said before.
God of the friend zone. Yes.
I don't know, guys.
Klein.
I mean, he does have Thor's hammer in his inventory somewhere from ALO. So he could be like the god of
Is he
thunder,
worthy?
god of element, or something.
It would have been interesting to have a godlike character for him. I wish they kind of would have given either Agil or Klein one of the characters. There was a male character.
No, I am telling you right here, right now, if Agil was given a super user account, a super account like the rest of the girls were, then I want them to see some kind of a crazy Dragon Ball Super crossover where he's just a freaking god of destruction.
He's just gonna have a battle axe. No, what would happen to his axe? He'd throw it to the ground and he just shattered the ground.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, Asuna can wave her hand and cause a split. This dude like shatters the earth. He's like, there's no coming back from his attack.
No, if he pokes the ground with the bottom of with his handle of his axe, just taps the ground, a crater shows up. He slams the handle on the ground, a hole shows up. He goes full out, there's nothing left.
I mean, I don't know if anybody really knows this about Agil, but Agil actually plays a tank class in just about everything he does. Even in like the SAO video games like Fatal Bullet, which takes place in GGO, he is considered a tank class. He also a heavy assault class.
Yeah, because he can take a hit.
So I mean, I could see Agil just getting so righteously pissed off at somebody like Poe or Gabriel, and he would find a way to take his primary battle axe or whatever weapon and convert it into the freaking giant Gatling gun that he has from GGO, and just
with Poe, if Agil had a godlike account, he would have been tired with his shit first thing. I'm like, he'd look at him like, I'm tired of your shit. I'm not waiting for nobody. Come here, bitch.
Yep.
What if Yui was able to actually get into the underworld? In my opinion, I don't think she would have been her little pixie self if she
No.
No,
she would have been one like an OP caster.
I could see her. Honestly, I could see Yui almost kind of like what they did with Yuna, where Yuna was kind of a bard class and she used music to give support ability. I could almost see Yui being something along those lines, but more of a healing class.
Her
That's
heals
what I
would
was
be
gonna say.
outrageous.
Yeah,
I see
I
her as a
mean,
healing class.
yeah, I could see her, kind of back in the background, throwing out, support buffs and things like that, and giving tactical data that she would have access to if she could.
Okay. I'm a big Persona fan. I think she would. This is where I'm thinking now because with you bringing that up, if anyone has played Persona in the past 3, 4, 5, whatever, Rise or Futaba, because in Persona 5, Futaba has skills. She's analyst. She analyzes everything. She figures out the weaknesses, stuff like that. She'll know where targets are. But also later on, if you level her up enough, she gets 2 skills. One skill actually restores your SP, pretty much that's your magic bar, where you're able to cast spells and everything like that, and your HP. But she's not part of the battle. She's actually in the background.
Oh, wow.
So you don't have to worry about her HP or anything. It's just, and then she also has some skills that if you're in a fight and they're weak enough, she'll just take them out for you.
Nice.
Could you imagine Yui just, I could see it now. She's not in the pixie form. She's like in the little girl form. And all of a sudden it's like, she's just popping off heals left and right, healing up the ALO players and Asuna and Klein and all of them. And then all of a sudden it's like, here comes a red player and Klein's getting, he's worn down. He's tired. She's trying to heal him up. She sees this red player in War of Underworld coming at him. And then she just busts out in the middle of the field, shields around her, and bitch slap blasts him back across the field. Just like that scene when right before she quote unquote died in SAO.
Yes.
When they were in that dungeon against the Death Wraith, Grim Reaper looking thing. Or even better, have her pull out the Reaper scythe from SAO.
Oh,
Have her pull out the Reaper scythe and just right across a red player. Throw a heal on Klein and fly the hell out.
Basically, we're saying that she's just gonna mess you up.
Yeah. That's my daughter.
So, if everyone was killed during or before Kirito's revival, I think that would have tilted him in the way pretty much that we see of the copied Kirito.
The Fluctlight copy. Yeah.
Nothing would exist.
Well, and so I don't know how deep you want to dive into this topic. So let's say everyone was killed before. Are we including the 3 goddess accounts?
Yeah.
In that.
Everyone
So you're including Asuna, Shinon, and Lifa.
Yep.
Then how does he wake up?
Well, this would be like pretty much
like during the transfer?
Yes.
Okay, so you're talking about post-connection, pre-awakening.
As
like
soon
that,
as
that
like
fine
he's
window.
awake, and then right there, death. As soon as he's regaining his consciousness. From them, his pages, his mentor, the knights that he cares for, all his friends that came to help him. Even though most of them are pretty wiped out by the time he does awake in the series. But and all you just see on the field are red players. Red players and 12. That's it.
I don't know, because in my opinion, I honestly think he would snap. He would go totally balls to the wall, mental, homicidal. But there's one thing you have to factor into that is the one person that they wouldn't be able to eliminate is Yujio.
Yes.
Yeah.
They would not be able to eliminate Yujio's influence.
They wouldn't be able to. But how much of Yujio's influence would be able to keep him sane, even though there is that very special bond between the two. But to see the bodies of all his real life friends, the pages, the knights, everyone dead on the ground.
That's a tricky space for me. That it really is, because I think that while he would just completely lose it and want to go just homicidal at that point, I still feel like Yujio would be trying.
He would be
damnedest.
It would be one of those situations that he would be trying, but pretty much we would see Kirito in the front, and then we would see Irgio behind him, but it would just be straight darkness around him, and you can tell that he's shouting and shouting, but Kirito isn't hearing.
I mean, I can see it going that way. The Underworld would no longer exist. Like, he would go administrator level
Oh yeah.
and beyond. He would wipe the field.
And I would hate to see what happened in the real world. That'd be a whole nother situation to deal with.
I mean, because I'm sure you would have Yu-Gi-Oh screaming at him that, Asuna's okay, Shinon's okay, Leafa's okay. When they died, they were, booted from the system, and all your friends from ALO and stuff, yeah, they lost their avatars, but they're alive.
But he would still be...
But he would lose everyone that he loved in the Underworld.
Yes.
And that, I think, would be enough to break him. Because we saw just how broken and tore up he was over Yu-Gi-Oh's death alone.
Because out of everyone in the Underworld, those two are the closest, but he regrets, even though Urgio has fully stated to him that don't. It was my own weakness that I took the steps that I did. But come to find out from that manner, from why Urgio, from an article, his death happened, was from his editor. Carl was editor Miki? Or Mika?
Makai, something like that. I actually saw that article as well, actually, right before you sent it to me. That was really interesting because basically the writer had no idea what to do with Yu-Gi-Oh as a character. And his editor was just like, kill him off and make that part of Kirito's, motivation and his drive and what happens to him. And so all of that just came from a suggestion of an editor.
So, here's an off the rails question. I already brought this up to you earlier, Kirito, but Lyria is probably gonna scream at me.
Here we go. Getting ready.
Poe is yandere for Kirito.
Oh Lord.
I'm staying quiet on this one for a minute.
He is though. Oh no. But he is.
We have a yaoi parry right here.
It is. He full on said it. He full on was like, I love you. I want to murder you because I love you.
Battle me, senpai.
It wasn't implied. I mean, he full on.
No, all the actions and words.
So the only thing going through my head now is Yandere Simulator. Is that open source enough to where you can put your own mods into it? Because if it is...
I think mods you can. But all I wanted now, I need to share this comment around. It's like, can somebody make an image of this?
No, I'm telling you right now, like, if I could find a way to build a mod set for Yandere Simulator, I will post this thing all over the internet like Kirito did the freaking seed at the end of ALO. I would find a way to make a mod where you have like Poe's cloak hood thing, his hair, and the weapon, and Senpai would look like Kirito.
Now, to add to the pairing list.
How could this get worse?
Just wait.
Let's see. I really don't actually have anything to top that right now. Besides alien sex goddesses? War of the Waifu?
War of the Waifu. Love War of the Waifu.
Okay, War of the Waifu. That was a great thing that came up, like right in our first or second episode.
It was the first.
It was the first episode because that's when Shinon steps in. She walks into the cabin and throws the salt at the pages. It's like, oh yeah, we're all girls.
Yeah, and I love how that became a meme. I love how that became a meme of it always was or always has been meme.
Yeah.
Where you see the page and she's like, wait, all of Kirito's friends are women? And then you got Shinon behind her going, it always has been, with the gun to the back of her head.
They don't even bring up the other two either. It's like, and two male.
Let's face it, Klein and Agil are background characters when it comes to the harem.
Okay, if we want to take this into either it could go worse or it could go the opposite way. The pairing for Klein is either with Leafa or Liz, is the way I see it.
No, I have.
Let him, yep.
I have a great headcanon for this, and that is hang on a second, let me triple check her name because I actually want to get this right.
I'm afraid.
It's a good one. We discussed it.
But you go ahead, Wolf, and give your arguments over your suggestions.
With Liz, I see it, one, because of the history they have, and I think their personalities fit fairly well. It's kind of one of those, not really opposites, but with the way their personalities kind of blend together. They don't fully blend, but she would pretty much keep him in check.
Yeah.
And I think Klein, to really function, he needs that woman that would keep him in check. And Leafa would pretty much do the same thing.
Okay, I could see that. Leafa could technically be the one to slap him around a little bit, which I'm sure he would probably like to. Not kink shaming, just saying.
Everyone's a little different.
But no, the one that I think would actually be a really interesting pairing with Klein would be Sakuya, the sylph from ALO. And the reason I say this is because she has a very similar temperament to her that
Sakuya.
Klein does. If you think back to War of Underworld, the episode where it's right when we meet Moonphase and Maymay, Sakuya was the sylph who went to go try and rescue the cat girl
Oh,
when she got taken down.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, they're both samurai style fighters,
Yes.
samurai class fighters. You know, they both have a we're going to do what it takes to support and protect our friends mentality. I mean, as you saw in that episode, when God, I wish I could
I wonder
remember.
how old she is.
Seba, that's her name. When Seba got struck down, Sakuya was about to lead the charge with a everybody use your strongest sword skill at once maneuver. She broke combat line and started ripping through red players to save her. And she ended up with a spear in the side. And that was when the healer from the Sleeping Knights stepped up and was just like, no, y'all need to stop this shit and listen to us for a minute.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Looking at her and then also remembering what her personality is and the fighting style, it really does fit with him.
Yeah, I could see her being no nonsense enough to keep him in line, but also laid back enough for them to be a fun couple. I could see that being a decent balance with them. Plus, I
Agreed.
mean, on top of that, she's pretty hot.
She's on my list, but she's not up there.
But I'm talking about for Klein, okay? I
Yeah.
mean, got Lifa, who I honestly think that for Klein, Lifa would be a little awkward because he knows that that's Kazuto's sister.
Yeah, and she is kind of young.
I don't like him with Leafa just because she's little sister and it's
Little
awkward.
sister and innocent.
Yeah, I mean, can you just imagine in your head the phone call or the house visit when like they have their first fight and Sugawa is at home bawling her eyes out. Kazuto is just like, what happened? And she's just like, Klein's an asshole. He shows up on his bike and beats the shit out of him. For making his little sister cry, and then says, clamp the blood, get it off my shoe, now tell me what happened.
Right?
The problem is, out of their whole group, when it comes to pairings or anything, even later on in life, like dating and everything, if Lisa gets past her brother complex. And then if
Word.
Silica, even though the thing is with Silica, I think she loves Kirito, but I think and plus she's more of a little sister Kirito sees her as because of how young she is.
Yeah, and he even calls it out when they first meet, and he saves her in the forest. She was like, why did you help me? He goes, I'm not going to tell you because you'll laugh at me. She's like, I'm not going to laugh. You remind me of my sister.
And the thing is, Silica is a year younger than Lifa, or 2 years, somewhere in there. She's the youngest out of everybody.
Yeah.
If Silica or Lifa ever started dating, I feel sorry for that guy.
Oh, God, yeah.
They are the babies. Well,
like it better be somebody outside of their circle because you know exactly what's going to happen. You're going to have a Gil who's like what 30.
Whoever receives the phone call first.
No, but I'm saying you're going to have like a 6'some" 30-year-old black guy who is ripped. You're going to have Klein. You're going to have the black swordsman.
And
on top of that, you're going to have Asuna and you're going to have Liz.
If I remember correctly, Angel says he is married at some point.
He is. Yeah, he is. He actually said he met his wife in game.
And the funny thing is, that's going to be like if he's at home at the time when he gets this phone call.
Oh, God.
His wife is going to be like, where are you going this late at night?
I got to go see a friend.
Why are you carrying that? Never mind.
Honey, why are you taking the baseball bat with you? I'm going to go knock some balls around.
He's the father of the group.
He is. Daddy A-Gil.
Now we need either his wife to get involved or find somebody to become the mother of the group. Actually, I think Rinko takes that place now.
Yeah. Rinko definitely has that mother mentality, that maternal instinct to her and everything. I could see that. But no, that's another thing that I've always thought was interesting is why haven't we ever seen A-Gil's wife? Because, I mean, let's face it, I've never once seen her in any of the party scenes at the Dicey Cafe.
No.
She's only mentioned in passing in a conversation the first time Kirito goes to the Dicey Cafe when he finds out about ALO. You know, he was like, yeah, I met my wife in game and, you know, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, did I miss something? Did she die somewhere? Like, was she one of the ones that died in SAO or something? Or does she have a real career and it just lets him go play bartender?
Well, there's the possibility of that, but there's also the possibility she didn't go into SAO like he did. So or if I think she's alive. That's really what I think, because Egil would be completely different if something like that drastically happened to him, that his wife actually died.
Okay, well, apparently I'm missing something somewhere because I actually just pulled up the wiki about Agil. Real name, Andrew Gilbert Mills, one of the 10,000 players who were trapped in SAO. After returning to the real world in the aftermath of Sword Art Online, Andrew began playing Alfheim Online as a gnome. In real life, Andrew manages the Dicey Cafe with the help of his wife.
Is she the cook?
I don't know. Like, that is literally the only reference I am seeing to his wife.
Well, and also you got to think, a lot of the times
Her name's Trish. I know that.
A majority of the time when we are at the caf, it's during the day when they're technically not open.
True. He's always holding some kind of a special hosting event or something for them.
Yeah. So it also may be in those cases where she supports what he does and who he's, even though he's made friends with a bunch of children, she doesn't wish to be involved with it. Like,
See that.
it's like, these are your group of friends. These are people you have built such a tight. I probably see definitely where, probably because of the time he spent in Alcrad with them. Those bonds are so tight that she probably would feel very awkward trying to become part of that circle.
I can see that.
Or even the few times that she would introduce herself or come out, and those few little conversations that she would possibly have with them.
From according to the wiki, it turns out that although African American by ethnicity, Andrew's parents took a liking to Japan. Andrew was born in Ueno, Tokyo, and he opened his coffee shop bar at the age of 25. Among his customers was a woman named Trish, who was a foreigner, lived nearby, and shared interests with Andrew. Thus, Andrew and Trish eventually got married. Afterwards, Andrew became trapped in SAO for 2 years, and when he came back, he had expected the shop to have long closed, but it was saved by his wife. So his wife ended up taking over his cafe, his little coffee shop bar, for 2 years while he was trapped in SAO.
She knew how much it was worth, or what he put into it.
Yeah, he knew how much that place meant to him, and it meant to them because that's where they met.
Yeah.
Aww.
And if I remember correctly, I think when Agil was talking to Kirito about his like IRL life at the Dicey Cafe the first time we see it, he actually not only mentioned meeting his wife, but they were both avid gamers, and it was practically a coin toss for them on who was going to be able to play SAO first. And he logged in and got trapped.
Yeah.
So I think they could only afford one nerve gear.
Yeah. And well, affordability, and then also the possibility of trying to get your hands on it with the thousands of people, because they produced a limited amount for that release. And
So there's a little bit more backstory on Trish, just, what little bit we do know. So,
and let's go into, since we're talking about Egil and his wife, let's talk about Broccoli and Fanato.
So
we haven't heard anything on their child.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, with the end of the episode, the way it was with the Intergalactic War, their child more than likely is born. What has become of that child is my main question.
I mean, it's been 200 years.
Mm-hmm.
No human lives 200 years, let's say aside from Kirito and Asuna, and that's a special situation.
Or other special cases. Well,
right.
And are you still fighting that those two are not their pages?
No, I'm kind of leaning more towards it.
So you can't say, because the thing is, if the child became somebody of ranking of that sort, then the thing is, we don't know how an Integrity Knight's child's lifespan is. It might be different.
That's true, because we've never heard of Integrity Knights having children before.
No, because
once they become Integrity Knights, granted,
because the administrators always put a stop to things. That I'm waiting to see. That's one thing I really want more. I can't, even though it deals with the child, but it's like with Broccoli, one of the most badasses in the series besides the pro tag.
I mean, honestly, Broccoli became a very loved character for me in the short time that we actually got to interact with.
Once we found out more about him, and then the ways after the administrator situation, even before the fight with the administrator, the way he was reacting, even when he was fighting Urgio, he wasn't really being serious, because slight little moments or slivers, and then also with Urgio making the comment of know, like telling him, I know who you are. You are the leader of the creator of my village that I was raised in. And then also the original finder of the Blue Rose Blade. And talking about the Blue Rose Blade, here's another thing I thought of today, actually. If Kirito and Ujio's pages were to inherit the Blue Rose and the Night Sky Blade.
Oh. Well, I mean...
Because as of right now, we don't know what their development was in the past 200 years. And they're also fighter jet pilots now. So we don't really know what the need for a blade would be. But obviously, they're still going to have that swordsmanship training that they had growing up.
Yeah, and I honestly see them keeping that even in the future and stuff, because even at that point, it may seem archaic and from a realm, long before, but those types of trainings and everything do instill senses of honor, discipline, focus, things like that. So I could see them still having some sort of training in that field. Plus, we don't know what landlocked battles look like.
Yeah.
Are we looking at kind of a GGO situation where they're using photon swords and things now, or...
And who knows? It's like, they don't even... The thing is, like, I'm not even saying they have to be able to release recollection the blades, but are to the point where they actually wield them. And because with the blades like that, definitely the Night Sky Blade, that Night Sky Blade is going to be a picky motherfucker.
Oh, most definitely.
It's like, nah, I don't see you. Because it's made from a tree that's been there for generations. The owner of that is a mess. And the funny thing is, for Kirito's page is the small brown or gray-haired chick. I can't remember at the moment.
Roni was Yujio's. No, sorry. Roni was Kirito's page, and she was the brunette. And Tease was Yujio's page. She's the taller redhead.
With how long the Night Sky Blade is, would she be able to sheath it? She would need a special sheath, probably.
Honestly, with the stats on those weapons, could you even see them being able to pick them up and carry them that effectively? I mean, they were basically, when they were carrying the weapons and stuff to help Kirito when he was in the wheelchair, or when they were picking him up and handing him to him to hold, I mean, they were like double fisting a single weapon and picking it, like hoisting it up and dropping it in his lap practically.
Well, you also got to remember that time they were early into their training.
Well, yeah. So I mean, their weapon control skills could be higher, allowing them to more effectively handle the weapons.
Because now they're legit, actual, well, in this case, integrity pilots.
But now, so in going along this train of thought here, Wolf, are we thinking that maybe before they got pulled out of the Underworld, before Asuna and Kirito got pulled out of Underworld, he bequeathed the swords to them? Because as soon as they log back in to that IP address, the swords are on his back. He logs in with them.
The only way, well, if this was to happen, if the pages were to inherit the blades, I think when Kirito saw that his time, either he was about to die as a person, like real life, would be one of the factors. Or two would be when he saw his duty to protect the Underworld was done, it was to be passed off to somebody else. That's kind of the way I would see it if he did pass on the Blue Rose and the Night Sky Blade. If he saw that it would be...
So this hypothetical question is more of a hypothetical question of down the road, not something that may have happened in the interim at the end of that 200 years.
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay.
You gotta remember, he still has them when they
that was my point of questioning for this whole thing, is he logs back in with the swords. Now, again, this could be one of those situations where, like we saw when he woke up, the swords materialize and go to him, but I don't...
Well, they don't materialize. The thing is, they fly to him. They don't really, because the sheets flew to him. They didn't materialize on his back. Because in the case that he did pass them on before he left and got his memory erased, you would have saw the swords flying through the space, and his back would have been bare.
Yeah,
when they logged in.
True. But no, I think if maybe once everything is said and done with the events of the Underworld, I could almost see him passing them on as tokens of honor, or in the unlikely event that we see the death of Kirito, I could see them either being buried with him or cross-marked as symbols of honor for his
grave. The thing
is,
Kirito would not want them as decoration. The way he is. He would, even if things are at peace, there's always going to be a conflict.
True.
So he would, obviously he would want somebody that's worth it, or that he saw worthy, and would still do the duties without corruption to keep the peace. And I think the two pages would be, or it could be the case where for Blue Rose, it would get passed to the page right away. But for the Night Skyblade, the possibility if his mentor was still alive and also in the shape to still fighting, his mentor would get it first and then it would get passed to his page.
That's possible.
Because of the time frame and the way the world works. And because you obviously, even though he says he's the protector of the underworld, even while being alive and everything of that sort, there will be a time once the underworld doesn't really need a protector. It just needs somebody to keep the balance, the peace. So that would be a person that's actually a resident of the underworld, unless it becomes evolved in something that's outside of their control.
Yeah. And maybe that could be why at the end of the finale, we saw that image of Kirito with the SAO weapons.
That's a big possibility. Now that
aside from the fact that I'm more or less leaning towards that's Kirito with that's Fluctlight Kirito.
Yeah.
But my other train of thought on this is
that it was kind of a teasing for
wouldn't
progression.
Fluctlight Kirito want Blue Rose and Night Sky?
Yeah.
Because those are the weapons he knows.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So maybe somewhere in the future of an arc or a movie or something, we see Kirito versus Kirito, and Fluctlight Kirito gets his hands on the swords, and IRL Kirito goes, screw it, poof, and he's got his old school swords.
Yeah.
Dark Repulsor and Elucidator.
Yeah. That's a possibility with that one. And also, it could also be kind of over to even though there is the series or a film that's being released that pretty much tells Asuna's side of the story for Alucard.
Yeah. While we're bringing that up, would it be okay to go ahead and pose my question?
Yeah.
So I posted this in our discussion log, and I'm just going to throw it out there. We do know that there is another story coming that is supposedly supposed to wrap up the events after War of Underworld, and it's being called the Interintelligence War. But we have no release information or anything about that yet. What we do have is the production studio telling us that they are doing another series called Sword Art Online Progressive, which is supposed to start back at the beginning of SAO and retell the events through Asuna's perspective, how she got into the game, how everything came to be with the development of her character and joining the Blood Knights, the Knights of the Blood Oath, meeting Kirito, learning to fight, everything. My question to you is, do you think that SAO Progressive is being put out there as a way to keep interest in the series alive and buy themselves time to complete the new Interintelligence War arc? Or do you think that Progressive is going to be the new series that we get, and the Interintelligence War is going to be another feature-length film like Ordinal Scale?
It really puts me on the line right now because of the way they did the scenes with the Intergalactic War. That could definitely be put, since I don't really have a lot of information on that arc itself, it could definitely be put into a film. It's like just the way they presented it just seems more of a...
The way you're saying present it, are you? I'm sure, because this is another thing that I wanted to bring up too, was the art style for that finale seemed way different.
It seemed more
throughout the rest of the series.
Yeah, with how the crispness of it and compared to the rest of the series, and then also just the way they were pretty much tiptoeing into what's to come at the end of that, it really could become a film. And then also with Progressive, it's like they could, for the Intergalactic War and Progressive, they could do a situation of, I don't know if you ever saw it, but for Persona 3, they did 4 films to tell the story of Persona 3 animated instead of doing an animated series.
Oh, nice.
So they could pull something like that, and that would be an interesting way, and it would be kind of a nicer way because you would get more, because with a film, that's going to be an hour and a half to 2 hours per of more constant floor told, because with episodes, we're losing about 4 minutes, 5 minutes per episode.
Minimum. Because
of intro and outros, without having this throw that in there for every episode, or a little, and also the little flashbacks per little episodes they occasionally do.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who pays attention to streaming services like Hulu or Crunchyroll or anything, if they go in to watch an anime like SAO, generally on air, it's going to be a 30-minute time frame, like from 1 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. is when you're going to find the episode. If you watch it on streaming, it is a 22 to 24-minute episode. because they have cut out all those commercial breaks from the episode when it airs live.
Yeah.
And then, so that cuts it down already by 6 to 8 minutes. And then you're losing another, minute and a half to 3 minutes for it opening and closing credits.
Yeah, so about
So
three, another 3 to 5, give or take.
Yeah, so I mean, in all reality, a 30-minute episode of an anime is really only about 18 to 20 minutes.
Doing it in a film standard, you'd get more information out there. You'd be able to tell the story determining on how much content there is, and definitely if they do it in 1 film, 2 films, or 3 films, whichever.
Yeah, I mean,
choose to do.
You could look at the anime film in its shortened, completed entirety, looking to be 55 to 115 minutes. And then, when you have the live version and everything, that bumps up to a 60 to 90 minute cut.
Yeah.
Or 120 minute cut. I don't know.
It's hard to tell because there's not really a lot of information. And have the progressive books. I've been meaning to actually sit down and read them. I just haven't, because they're actually the light novels. They're not the manga base. So there's a lot of information there, and determines, I'm not sure how many novels there are for progressive. And I'm not sure how much information there is for the International War. It could also, for me, it's for the next arc for Intergalactic War, the way it's looking right now is looking more like a film.
The Interintelligence War?
Yes. It's looking more like a film than a new series arc.
Yeah. Lyria, what do you think so far?
Leaning towards film.
You're leaning towards film?
Just because of time frame and everything. You can get a lot more done in a film and focused. And also, like you said about the art style, is a lot different in the last episode.
Yeah, because to keep that much high quality in either from 12 to 24 episodes is going to be expensive. To keep that quality in a film is going to be a cheaper budget.
Yeah, because you're looking at one singular production time.
Plus, a film of it would be amazing.
Oh yeah.
Well, my other question. So let's continue on this train of thought for just a second, if we don't mind. So, do we think that the SAO progressive is going to be what we get to keep the interest alive until we get the Interintelligence War, or do you think we're going to see Interintelligence War before progressive premieres?
Isn't progressive coming out in 2 years?
I have a feeling progressive will be first.
Really?
Because if progressive is more than likely going to become a series release. Because to be able to tell pretty much the same story from Kirito's perspective, but from Asuna's, there's going to be a lot of information, because there's a lot of
yeah. No, they've already called it out that it's going to be the new series. But I'm just wondering if we're going to get a progressive series and then get Interintelligence the series, or if we're going to get the Interintelligence movie to wrap up Alicization and then go into progressive.
Well, here's the way I think. If Interintelligence War is a film, one of 2 ways this could happen. We could get it before, or right before progressive releases, or midpoint of release for progressive, if it is a film.
I can see that.
If it's not a film, we probably won't get that arc until after progressive. And I say that because of the way that very last scene, a number of things you can take away from the very last scene, where Kirito is walking through a door and he has the 2 blades he weld during Alcrad. And this is one of them, because it takes you back to the past, and progressive is technically doing that.
I don't know. It raises a lot of questions for me, because
it does.
I want to see. Yeah, I want to see how this story plays out. This is the first time in SAO's history that we've had this kind of ending, where, as I called it out in the actual episode where we talked about it, this is a straight up James Bond level ending.
Yeah.
Where they flat out said, yeah, there's more to come. Kirito's coming back, but we don't know jack.
Yeah. Because then the thing is, and I think the other 2 characters that will have a full involvement in the Intergalactic War, because of their roles in the underworld and their characters, are Shinon and Lifa. The others might get some involvement, but I really think Shinon and Lifa will probably have a bigger
I'll tell you right now,
than they did during the Underworld arc.
And I really, really hope that they bring them back, because, and not just for a fan love, because they are really great characters in their own rights, especially Shinon. I'll give you that
Makes
one.
sense because you already have one goddess / queen of the underworld, Asuna, and because she's the goddess of creation, Thesia. Why not have the other two goddesses show up?
Right.
Like,
But the other reason why I want to see Solus and Terraria is because they got shafted.
Oh, they did. They really got shafted in the underworld.
They got shafted in Underworld's closing arc. I mean, they show up. They are literally there as the Deus Ex Machina to get Kirito to wake up.
Pretty much, that's it.
and then
Then they're done.
I mean, Lifa came in for what? A tentacle rape scene?
And
And to get
showing how badass she can become.
brutally beaten and murdered almost 1,000,000 times in a single combat.
Yeah.
And gives her memory, gives the memory link to Kirito, and poof, she's ejected. Shinon got screwed over because she had her freaking legs blown off in that fight with Gabriel.
missed limbs or lost limbs.
They showed Lifa's development as a fighter. She has improved quite a bit.
And they showed that she is a better fighter and she is way more skilled because she has been going with Kazuto and the group for so long now.
But they kind of threw Shinon. They did her wrong, in my opinion, in this.
Yeah. I mean,
she's in all reality, even though she was fighting Gabriel and the mental tragedy she has with him.
But I don't personally feel like that micro arc was not given the proper closure.
No,
in my opinion.
No.
Because if it was to, then she would have literally blown him in half and he would have had to log back in again.
Yes.
Like, as much as I love her character, because she is my favorite character, but she deserved better character development.
In my opinion, with the backstory that she has with Gabriel, Kirito has no backstory with Gabriel whatsoever.
Yeah.
I really think Shinon should have been the one to take him out, finish his story, and that there.
She did. She deserved it.
And I'll be honest with you, like, despite the fact that we should have seen the fight take place the way it did, with Kirito and Yujiro putting those final beatdown moves on Gabriel, in my personal opinion, yes, it would have been cheap and we would have kind of been going WTF, where the hell did she come from, in that last moment, given the condition she was in. But I honestly think it would have been slightly better had Shinon shown up in those last seconds, pulled out Hecate, and as Kirito and Yujiro put the final, kind of binding hit and weakened Gabriel, she pulls the trigger and does one of those concentrated burst fires like she did on him that blew his arm off and burned his face and puts a freaking hole right through him.
Agreed.
Would have been
or
incredible.
blew his head off or something. I think she deserved a final hit on that final conflict.
I fully agree.
I agree too.
And I have like a couple more, and this is one of them. One of the ones I kind of really thought of, and it kind of really showed a lot definitely during this arc, because we've seen the development and the personalities and stuff throughout the past arcs. It's there, but this one had the development of the characters so much more. It's really noticeable, the maturity of their characters through this arc. It's from an article I scrolled across of, and I shared as well with the others, from Dengeki Online, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, that the author admitted that with the anime being released, it has made him easier to write his light novels, because he would just, if he was having troubles, he would go
writer's block.
Yeah, he would just go watch an episode or so of the voice actors and seeing how they were presenting things, and it kind of gave him more of that visual but also mentally showing of his characters.
Yeah, I mean, that's an author and a creator giving respect to those who have taken his original work and made it something even more. And I love seeing that type of thing. I love seeing creators who say, I laid the groundwork and you made something special out of it.
Yeah, because
because of that, he now can more fully flush out how he feels and what he wants to do with his original characters.
They pretty much manifested their personalities in real life. So that, and with that, it's like, I don't do a lot of writing or stuff like that, but it's like, just to produce an idea, having that something that manifests it to some degree helps you with that little push to move it forward.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's kind of like anybody who's ever written a fan fiction story before, whether, it be something goofy, be something, true to arc or whatever. Anyone who's ever written a fan fiction, I think would find it easier to take inspiration from a animated or an action, like a live action source for that material than it would be to take something from a printed work. Because in my personal opinion, printed work can be read and interpreted in many different ways. You kind of put your own spin on the inflections and the subtext.
yeah.
But if you have somebody who has taken that work and broken it down and reconstructed it and put voice and action to it, then to have the original author say, yes, that is what I meant. That is how that was supposed to be represented. Then you can say, okay, then that's the type of source I need to go off of. And if the author himself is looking at these voice actors and these animators and saying, you guys did exactly what I wanted done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's face it, he's basically fanficking his own work now.
Very much so.
But the fact that he can do that because these voice actors and animators have put such a breath of life into his creations speaks volumes to not just their work, but his base work as well.
Yes. So the last question I'm going to ask for you guys and everyone else that's listening or watching in either way is ending of the animation. If it was, do you think this ending was a good, solid, even though with it being announcing something else, or if they didn't do like where they were saying, oh, there's going to be more blah, 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 that whole spiel, but that as soon as the scenes end after them waving to the pages, would you have been okay with this ending?
No, I know.
No, I really wouldn't have, because it leaves way too many loopholes and way too many open endings, way too many plot threads, way too many unanswered questions. Had this been the be-all, end-all of SAO as an anime, I would have literally stood up screaming at the screen, WTF.
I'm going to
I
be
do
one
that.
of the balls. This is one of the questions I really wanted to hear Asuda's answer to. I'm going to be one of those oddballs, sadly. It's like, I wasn't fully happy with it, but if the animation ended here, I would have been okay with this ending, because to me, it gave the perspective of, obviously there's more to the story, but also if we didn't know about the other light novels that were there, this would be one of those other typical annoying endings where the rest is up to your imagination type deal. And sometimes that's a beautiful thing, and then sometimes it's a terrible thing.
No,
In my opinion, it was a terrible thing for
I was going to say, Rain, I'm going to have to call bullshit on this. I really am. I mean, yes, I can understand why you would feel that way. I playing devil's advocate here. I understand it. But at the same time, as somebody who has sat down week after week after week after week and watched the story threads
there
build,
would have been swearing involved, but
I'm saying, as somebody who has watched the story arcs build the way they have, who have watched the characters grow and develop the way they have, to have that kind of ending to where it's literally the three most OP characters are just swatting some big baddie out of the sky in the middle of freaking space, while you've got two spaceships flying around who could barely put a scratch on it, after coming from a world of practically medieval level combat and lifestyles.
Phoenix, I kind of have to agree. It was a little yucky, but
yeah.
Well, we had a comment from Phoenix Squid 99.
Yeah, I see it in the chat log now. So yeah, Phoenix, yes, it was kind of yucky. And actually, Phoenix, I'll go ahead and interject real quick and try to answer your other question. Why was Kirito so OP? I mean, I could throw out the basic answer and say plot armor.
That's where it mainly goes. But what's your actual other answer?
My other answer is, this goes back to what we discussed earlier about he was so much like Kayaba, where he was a beta tester. He knew the ins and outs of the mechanics. He knew the ins and outs of the games. He knew how to manipulate the situations to his beneficial development. Not just any character could stand on a bridge in the middle of floor, whatever that was, and have 7 guys swinging and beating the crap out of him, and his health bar go beep, 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 drop down like 2 ticks and refill. It takes somebody who knows the system to be able to do that.
But also, I think it had some involvement was with his fight with the administrator. For him to be as OP as he was, when he was struck and then actually having access to that terminal, it kind of probably in a way screwed that he pretty much became after he defeated the administrator, became pretty much the new administrator. And Phoenix, just a heads up, we have not read any of the light novels. We are going off everything that's just been
in animation or some cross references from some video games and online articles that we've checked out. I kind of see where you're coming from with that, Rain, but at the same time, you also got to remember he went OP God mode, hacks mode as the community sometimes calls it, before he even got struck by the terminal.
Yeah, but well, true, because
he changed his outfit right there before he started going one-on-one. How did he do that? He had to have known there was a way to manipulate his presence. Yeah, Phoenix, you're right. He pretty much became God, and I think that we saw that.
Well, he understood
literally right there at the end of
early.
SAO during his final fight with Kayaba,
because you have access to the seed. But with the Underworld taking the bases of Outcrad as its base, he understood it more, but also, and with the little tweaks they did do to the Underworld, he understood fairly early on in the Alicization arc.
Yeah, but like Phoenix was just saying, he pretty much became God. We saw that happen as soon as he gets stabbed through the chest by Kayaba at the end of SAO.
Yeah.
And he doesn't immediately disintegrate. He turns into a ghost, goes God mode with the yellow eyes, and stabs him back and he disintegrates before Kirito does.
And also throwing barriers with no arm.
Yeah. I mean, this is a guy who has, for lack of a better term, he's Neo from the Matrix. It's like, this is the guy who he looks at the world and he sees the code,
Yeah, I could agree with that.
He is the one. He is the one that knows how to manipulate and go through all this stuff, even though on the outside of it, he seems like some dorky teenager.
Very much so. And with the very last question, and sorry, Phoenix, that you're joining in with us, where we're almost coming to a close. But the last question is, out of all the seasons that have released and films, what do you think was the best?
Mother's Rosario was my favorite, but Shinon's my favorite character, so I have special bond with the gun, whichever one that was.
SAO2.
Yes.
My favorite arc so far.
Kind of agree, Phoenix.
That was kind of a stupid ending. I really think he should have died. Yeah.
Well, that's what I really thought with them being stuck in the acceleration. Technically, Asuna and him should have died. But with plot armor as strong as his, it kind of put a loophole in that. So what was your favorite, Kirito?
I hate to say it to a degree, but I almost think that my favorite one so far has been SAO2 Gun Gale, just because it seemed like the most self-contained and the most cleanly wrapped up out of all the endings and all the arcs. Now, the one that pulled my heartstrings the most, I'm going to have to go with Mother's Rosario, because I absolutely adored Yuki Kono. She was such an awesome character, and to see the way that she was bonding with the rest of the Sleeping Knights, and they all had that, that connection, that bond with each other, that you didn't get to see out of many of the other micro groups like Kirito and Asuna's group. Yeah, I think for as far as like favorite ending, SAO2 with Death Gun, yeah, I'm going to go with that. Plot armor is a hell of a drug that so many main anime characters use it. That is the God's truth there, Phoenix.
The plot armor at the end of the current season is part of the reason why I didn't like it. I didn't like the fact that it was a happy ending and it was all wrapped up in a bow and everybody was okay. I didn't like that. It bothered me.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we don't know that everybody, quote unquote, was okay.
People we saw, though.
But the people that we saw. And yeah, now, I mean, granted, GGO was kind of SAO2 was kind of one of those wrapped up nice and neat happy endings. But it also kind of wasn't. because after what happened with Death Gun, and Kirito and Shinon had that grenade hug and everything, when they got back to the real world, it turned real dark real quick.
Oh yeah.
And it looked like, Kirito almost died again. Shinon was in the middle of an attack. What we thought was supposed to be her best friend was a psychotic bastard and a serial killer at this point. So yeah, it got real dark real quick.
Very much. Sorry, I had to mute for a minute, everyone. My roommate showed up.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. No, so, Rain, what about you?
For mine, I would say for characters development and everything, I like the way the last arc went with the characters, with their development, like their expressions, the way they were, the way they like them as characters. But I would say
so War of Underworld for character development.
For character development, that's pretty much where I'm at.
Okay.
I love character development, but you really saw it in a lot of the other arcs. Mother of Rosario, you really saw it with Asuna, but you don't really see that much until probably about Underworld.
Okay.
And yes, characters probably should have had some permanent brain damage or something. With that situation of pretty much having your soul stuck in the video game for 200 years.
I mean, they upped the stakes on that, and we were all stressing out, and then they just woke up, and it was good and fine and dandy.
I really didn't think they would. My thought on it was that they were going to have their real life bodies, but they might be alive in the underworld still.
Can the soul exist without the body?
That is the question.
I mean, apparently it worked for Kaiba.
Kaiba, I don't know what his bullshittery.
I said, he is Voldemort at this point.
Like I also said, he just wanted to become RoboCop, and he lived his dream. It was beautiful.
Kaiba doesn't have plot armor. Even though he was the first major villain.
No, okay, he might not have plot armor. He has author hacks mode armor. I mean, the author is literally going to throw him in wherever he sees fit to do his storyline.
Very much so. Thank you for joining. For the others that are now viewing us, we are coming near our closing. If y'all have any questions or that you would like to hear our thoughts from the series, we've been talking about everything from the War of the Underworld, the big part 2, from the beginning of it to the end, a little bit of snippets here and there, some thoughts on certain things. I will be posting this over to our YouTube channel sometime this week. Obviously, it will be an edited down version, so a lot of the silence and non-interesting parts are pretty much a highlight reel of this whole post show.
Basically, he's going to find ways to cut me out as much as he possibly can so I sound like I shut up more.
I've watched One Piece a while ago when it was on 4Kids. It was a terrible time, so I stopped. And then I started back up with Funimation's release about a month ago. So I'm way back on One Piece. Naruto, I have finished as reading the manga. I have not finished seeing the animation to see what my thoughts are on the animation. JoJo, I have not started in either way or manner.
Yeah, I've never seen or read One Piece or JoJo. Naruto, I got through Naruto and I got up into like the 4th or 5th episode of Shippuden and then just kind of spaced out and went elsewhere.
Shippuden is actually the better arc of Naruto than
it is, but I had so much going on at the time that I just lost my ability to watch it, really. And then I got sucked into something else when my free time started to open back up. So
I've seen One Piece. I've seen a couple episodes of Naruto, and then me and Daniel watched one of the seasons of JoJo, but I don't remember which one, honestly.
JoJo has been one of those ones that I've been told to watch or read a number of times, but I've just never got around to it.
Meaning, the small bit I saw, it was entertaining.
I've seen clips of JoJo here and there, but it's just with being the owner of this channel that we do, with the pandemic and everything like that, where it's put things on hold, having to find work, I probably have had more free time to actually sit down and do it, but working on ideas and thoughts to improve and also how to kick into next year. I will try to do that, Phoenix.
I'm not a super fan of the really super long series. I don't tend to get into them. I don't have the patience.
And I'm just busy AF.
Well, for those that are here that may not know what this channel originally is, we cover conventions like anime, gaming, comic book, sci-fi conventions. We go around to those. We started doing this podcast because of the pandemic, and it was something we've been wanting to do, and we love anime, manga, everything of that sort. We just so to see where it goes. We just while I'm at that, we are going to be, even though it's a very old series, we're not going to be reading the old series. It'll be the new series of Inuyasha, the sequel. So we're going to see how that goes.
Super excited.
Yeah, and we're gonna have some interesting discussions about that because we're approaching it slightly different this time with our coverage of the show. I am not a huge Inuyasha fan. I've never really had a chance to sit down and watch or read much Inuyasha. I know enough of it from being just around in the pop culture and anime world. Illyria here is a relatively decent, big fan of it. So is Rain. So we're gonna have some differing opinions, and it's going to be interesting for me to kind of see if I can come into this new series with not having quite all the details and information of the old one.
Around, I'll be the one talking all the time, and he'll be the one throwing in a comment every now and then.
With us being such big fans of SEO, and also with wanting to see how the series ended, is why we pretty much went into SEO during our free time. So any last comments from anybody?
It's been a hell of a run. I've really enjoyed getting together each week and kind of breaking down the episodes and deconstructing them, putting them back together, and seeing where things would go. It was interesting to see how our thoughts and opinions differed on various matters, and how we were able to call some things like he and I being a traitor, and some people were not.
What's that, Phoenix? Cheeto? Are you talking about the chips, or is this a character from JoJo? All right, Lyria, you have anything to close out on?
Just that it was awesome.
Okay.
The chips. Love
Cheesy
me some
goodness.
Cheetos. Love me some Cheetos.
Nom nom nom.
Well, I am Rain Wolf.
I'm Kirito Silverheart, and
Okay.
saying goodbye for Austin the Silverheart as well, who couldn't join us tonight.
And I'm Lyria.
Thanks for those that have stuck around, and you, Phoenix, that has been commenting around a little bit. We hope to see you next time when we do this, or if you're interested in it. I will try to check out JoJo. I might make a video, or try to make a little video, or make a little post over on our social that I have, because I want to be that person that says I'll try to do it, but actually do it.
Yeah, guys, feel free to follow us. We're on YouTube, Facebook, here over on Twitch when we live stream and stuff. So check us out, and
We will see you all next time.
bye.